Okay, hi friends. Welcome to our second open webinar. I'm going to begin with some questions that I received within the last couple of days. And first I have a question here from Paul. It says, in Rays and the Initiations, page 426, there's a reference to the Masters of the Wisdom and the Lords of Compassion, and that the Lords exceed the Masters in numbers, and that the Lords need monastic stimulation on Sirius. Well, that's, reasonable enough, because Sirius has a fifth-ray soul, in my estimation, just like Venus does. So it's a place of brilliant light where not only Manas but Mahat, a kind of cosmic mind, is cultivated. Of course, it's interesting that Sirius, just like Venus, has also a fundamentally soft-line nature. I believe a monad on the sixth and second ray, just the way Venus does. But anyway, it's a brilliant source of Manas, or even Mahat. Is it reasonable to consider hierarchy as a two-track institution in which the Lords have a separate and different path of study, meditation, and service? I think that their methods of meditation will depend at first upon the soul ray, and then upon the monadic ray. And finally, there will probably be 7 streams that they will be on, and even 9, because lately there are 7 paths that lead out of our solar system, or, well, perhaps 9 paths. But if we consider the path of Earth service to be in our solar system, then there are 8. So the differentiation has a lot to do with soft line, hard line emphasis. And although many of the second ray souls tend to become masters of the wisdom, those on the fourth and sixth ray tend to become the lords of compassion. And while, of course, as masters, they are extremely luminous and intelligent, they do not have that same mental emphasis as the masters of the wisdom. In other words, the lords of compassion are masters of the wisdom. They are masters, but they don't have that same kind of acute mentality, which would mean they would not have to travel to Sirius for that kind of stimulation. Some workers see the energy of compassion as a replacement for pain. Well, sometimes I think that's wishful thinking. To my way of thinking, that the kind of pain that we experience on this fourth planet from the Sun, fourth of the known planets from the Sun, including Vulcan, is a painful endeavor. We are graduates of purifying sorrow and releasing pain. Or is it purifying pain and releasing sorrow? I always get those two a little bit mixed up, but you get the idea. We can't avoid it on our planet. And I think that compassion grows out of that and how we handle it. And when pain is addressed by the great second ray on our planet, which is the ray of the soul of our planet and our solar system, that excruciating sensitivity that is connected with pain develops into compassion and the ability to feel beyond one's own ring past knot. So to me, it's wishful thinking to try to prematurely replace compassion, replace pain with compassion. What's that old thing about suffering being optional? Some New Age statement. I'm afraid not, at least not in my view, but there comes a time when the suffering is reduced because the compassion is so strong. And there I think I would have to agree with the idea. So some workers see the energy of compassion as a replacement for pain and suffering, thus producing a shift from the path of greater resistance into the path of less resistance. Well, I would say the more compassion that we have, the more we will be with the divine plan and the great purpose, which is an expression in our solar system of love and wisdom as well. However, whoops, I don't want that, do I? I don't want help and I don't want no. All right. However, on page 670, I'm trying to, maybe that will do it. On page 677 of Dyna 1, it seems to suggest that pain is the preferred state because it produces a better result than does replacement of pain, I suppose, through compassion. Well, I don't know. I read over that, Paul, and I didn't know whether it said it's preferred. It just has very positive results because it is the fourth purpose of Sanat Kumara, who is, as we know, the planetary logos and emanation of our planetary logos. So if there are 2 points of view, you say lesser versus greater, which path do the Lords pursue? And I would say the Lords of Compassion do pursue the path to Sirius especially. And it's there they receive what they have to receive. But I think no one avoids the pain. As a matter of fact, to me it seems that the Lords of Compassion, maybe because of their soft line sensitivity, if they're on the second ray line of the second ray line, which has 3 aspects to it, and they're in the middle line, the line of the Christ, then they indeed join the fellowship of Christ's sufferings. They are not exactly masters of the wisdom. They're not exactly lords of meticulous entirety, or whatever we can call it, the third aspect of the second ray. Then they would fit very well with those on the fourth and sixth ray who tend to take that path. But we have to realize that these great paths that lead out of our solar system, all of them eventually, even the path of Earth service eventually, are not determined necessarily by the soul ray or the monadic ray. There's statistical tendencies, I suppose. Many of the masters of the wisdom take the ray path, and these fourth and sixth ray monadic types, like the Master Jesus and Master Serapis, they take the path to Sirius. But it is somewhat independent of the monadic ray. So I think this is the quotation. You will receive this. I'm going to send this out to everybody who's on the list, okay? And you'll be able to reread these things. Pause your screen and you can reread it. So I won't take the whole time here to deal with this totally extensively, but I will read this because it's the one that you looked at. Upon this path pass all those who through devotion and activity combined achieve the goal, but who lack as yet the full development of the monastic principle. Well, what is that full development? You can be pretty sure, I think, that the Master Jwal Khul, who is tremendously monastic in a certain sense, will not be taking this path to Sirius. The Buddha, however, was supposed to have taken that path, and he will not now, we're told, probably not. And the Christ, wherever else his adventures take him, for instance, onto the ray path to become a ray of love, pure cosmic love, he will eventually wind up on Sirius, this we're told. This being a solar system of love wisdom, or of astral Buddhic development, the emotion and the intuition, the fourth path includes a large number of the sons of men. In the hierarchy of our planet, the Lords of Compassion are numerically greater than the Masters of the Wisdom. Such has been our development, and the fact that our planetary logos is not even yet an initiate of the second degree cosmically. So there has not been enough cosmic manas on our planet maybe to develop the Masters of the Wisdom. So, and in our solar system, it's an astro-Buddhic solar system, so probably the majority of the Masters are Lords of Compassion. The former must therefore all pass to the sun Sirius, there to undergo a tremendous monastic stimulation, for Sirius is the emanating source of manas, at least to our solar system, and especially to our solar logos. The Pleiades give manas to our heavenly men, to the planetary logi. There the mystic must go to become what is called a spark of Mahatic electricity. Well, Mahat is a cosmic mind. The initiates who tread this way are primarily those of the fourth and sixth order. Well, by order here it means monadic ray, I suspect. As earlier pointed out, this is the path that the Lords of Compassion most frequently follow, and at this time the Egyptian master, which Egyptian master is this? I think it's Master Serapis and the Master Jesus of the sixth order. those people who have monadic rays that are 4 or 6 or 7 or 5 or whatever, everybody has 2 monadic rays in my idea, and on one level we can have any one of the 7, and on the still higher level we can only have 3. But that's another subject. The mystics of the Occident who have come into incarnation during the past 1,000 years are a peculiar group of egos whose impulse is towards this type of cosmic energy. They're called blissful dancing points of fanatical devotion. Listen to that one again. Blissful dancing points of fanatical devotion. Just imagine, I mean, that's like, the 6th ray monad for sure, right? So in this system they have developed certain basic recognitions, and the ecstasy of the Occidental mystic is the germ latent within him, which will someday flower forth into that cosmic rapture and also rhythmic bliss. I get goosebumps when I think of it. Cosmic rapture, rhythmic bliss, for which we have as yet no name. So that's on, all of this stuff is in Cosmic Fire. Talk about the end before the beginning. Well, and I would just say, just read this part to pause this. I'm not going to get into it too much at this moment, because there are other things to say. I just wanted to say a little bit about pain. First of all, the 4th purpose of Sanat Kumara is called this. Sanat Kumara, when you talk about Sanat Kumara, you might as well talk about our planetary logos, because, Sanat Kumara is the emanation, or one of the emanations, of our planetary logos. And we talk about his purpose as it is applied on our globe and in our 4th chain. The mysterious purpose which has necessitated the calling into activity the principle of pain. We have the cross. When you're all pulled apart, this way and that way, in all 4 directions, it's painful. Pain and separation go together. Separation and dissonance go together. Unity and harmony go together. So the capacity to suffer, which is distinctive of humanity, is the outstanding conscious reaction to environment of the 4th kingdom of nature. And then it goes on to describe this, and it would take an hour for me to work through this, so I'm not going to do this. But just pause the screen and read it. It's found in the rays and the initiations, and we're talking here about art and beauty. These are the ways of overcoming the dissonance. This is on the discussion of the value of pain. Now, it's a pretty hard sell to tell us that pain is valuable, but we're right here on our planet. It's a rather fast path because it makes a person so terribly sensitive to the 2nd ray, which is the soul of our planet, and to the spiritual hierarchy. So this is talking about the difference between the devas and the human beings. And devas tend to react in a different way. Let's see, I just heard a bell. I hope it's not in my head. Maybe someone just joined us. Okay. So, listen to this, and this is the last thing I'll say about it then, and I would recommend that you read in Esoteric Psychology 2, around page 33 and 34, all this wonderful stuff about the blessed ones, because every one of us is really a blessed one. A blessed one is a monad and also a pilgrim. So I would suggest you read that, and I'm just going to read a little bit of this, the last word about pain. Pain is that upward struggle through matter which lands a man at the feet of the Logos. Just think about these words. Pain is the following of the line of the greatest resistance, and thereby reaching the summit of the mountain. Pain is the smashing of the form. I think, humanity may have a 1st ray monad in addition to its emerging 2nd ray soul. Pain is the smashing of the form and the reaching of the inner fire. That's the jewel in the lotus, which is an extension of the monad. Pain is the cold of isolation, which leads to the warmth of the central sun. Pain is the burning in the furnace in order finally to know the coolness of the waters of life. Sounds like Aquarius, doesn't it? Pain is the journeying into the far country, resulting in the welcome to the Father's home. Pain is the illusion of the father's disowning, which drives the prodigal straight to the father's heart. Pain is the cross of utter loss that renders back the riches of the eternal bounty. Pain is the whip that drives the struggling builder to carry to utter perfection the building of the temple. The uses of pain are many, and they lead the human soul out of darkness into light, out of bondage into liberation, out of agony into peace, that light, and that liberation within the ordered harmony of the cosmos are for all the sons of men. And, you know, when it's finally all over, in this beautiful Blessed One section, it says, nothing remains but bliss. The illusion of pain disappears, and nothing remains but bliss. Okay, I know that was a long answer. Forgive me for that, but it's such an important subject, and we can't escape it here on this planet. We cannot escape it because we are graduates in the school of painful endeavor. This is our task, and this is what we have to do. Now, the second question I've got is about the solar angel. And it is an issue that DK says we will never solve. We don't have enough to solve what is the solar angel, what is the mystery of the solar angel. We can only make little inroads into this unfathomable for us mystery, because our problem is that this path to Sirius, and Sirius is where the solar angels come from as far as our solar system is concerned, is the most mysterious of all the paths. It's just absolutely veiled in mystery, and probably it has to be because that's where the bulk of human beings are going to go, treading that path to Sirius. So here Peg was asking about the, in his book, Torquem Saradarian's book, and you know he's done a lot of wonderful writing on all manner of things to try to make them more comprehensible, some clarification. It is simply put here, it is said, that the divine soul, solar angel plus animal group soul equals the human soul. And in a way we could say so, but you know there is an emergence of animal man out of the animal group soul, so that whatever we call the group soul contains fewer and fewer entities towards the time when individualization is occurring. It is such that every human being has one solar angel, even though that solar angel may be complex and have many emanations in order to build the egoic lotus, because the solar angel is a group being. So we have one human or one animal man ripe for entry into the human kingdom, and one solar angel. And by the time this individualization process occurs, at least on our planet, the number in the group soul is very small. As a matter of fact, just like certain animals in our particular round are distinguishing themselves now by emerging towards individuality, and in this round just a few will be individualized. So it was with the ripe animal men of the of the middle Lemurian period. So we cannot say that one solar angel plus the animal group soul equals the human soul. At least in my view, not. I only offer you my views. I you know, according to my present level of ignorance, as I call it. One day I will know more and be able to speak more definitively, but now I simply offer you my point of view. That's all we can do, and we have to risk offering our point of view. The mental unit, you know, is developed in the animal, actually. The solar angel does not give the mental unit. The mental unit, you know, which is here, this is on the map, this is the mental unit, it's so important. This develops in the animal as instinct approximates mentality. Those are DK's words. As instinct approximates mentality. So what the solar angels do is they stimulate that mental unit by the insertion of a fragment of themselves, having pervaded the entire universe by a fragment of myself. I remain. So the mental unit has been building all of this time, and the more it builds, the more the animal is emerging from the group soul, the more he tends to have his own experiences, which are not necessarily shared with all others in the group soul. And then comes the time in our system when the fires are shot forth from the Sagittarian bow 21 million years ago, and the fragment, the arrow-like fragment from the solar angel, which is a part of the solar angelic self, lands in the vicinity, in two vicinities. One is on the higher mind, and one is in the area of the mental unit. And what lands on the higher mind creates out of higher mental substance, which is its own type of essence, an egoic lotus. The egoic lotus is really made of the higher mental substance, but it is substanded or substood by the presence of the solar angel and its formative power. So there is energy substance of the solar angel which molds the higher mental substance into a particular design, and that design will unfold as the egoic lotus. So anyway, let's see what else we have here. Basically, the solar angel directs the ensouling process, you say, for the human being. Yes, and don't forget the monad, because the solar angels have come in to serve the human monad. Now each, and the solar angels were human monads in the previous solar system, so they already know what that's all about, but every monad has its own design. So according to the pattern that's in the monad, so the solar angels assist that monad to bring its pattern in, and the pattern probably lands within the central fire, which later we call the jewel in the lotus. So the solar angel is directing this, but not too attentively until the time of the opening of the fifth petal occurs. And then the solar angel becomes what we call a downward gazing soul. So when this fifth petal is in process of opening, then, or at least in process of organization, stimulation, organization, and gradual unfoldment, then the solar angel, as it were, looks down, becomes a downward gazing soul, and begins more to direct the process. As I'm recalling what DK said about this, the earlier process is pretty well directed by the second aspect of divinity itself. And then the specific attention begins at that later point. Now, obviously, the solar angel is very active in extracting all of the qualities that you have developed as you're living life after life after life. There's a special divine mathematical alchemy that allows the solar angel to pull on those experiences and build them in as quality and value into the egoic lotus. But that becomes a very focused factor in the very later stages of evolution, because you've gone through millions of years without a whole lot of contribution to the causal body. Some things there is contribution, you know, in the Hall of Ignorance, the knowledge petals and so forth. But the real unfoldment, the real digging in the quarries of life that the solar angel can use, I think, begins prominently when the fifth petal is being attended to by the solar angel. Okay, anyway, and what I suggested, Peg and all, was to look at the different methods by which individualization took place. For instance, on the moon chain, we're told, and in the previous solar system, no solar angels. Then how did we get an egoic lotus if there were no solar angels to intervene and substand the matter on the higher mental plane with their own energy force? It must have been conferred by the monad itself, and the flower or lotus type of structure was probably given within the purpose of the monad itself. And then over a much, much longer period of time, this egoic lotus took shape. The solar angels have saved us so much time, millions and millions of years. Without their intervention, we're told that even the highest developed human being at this time would be less developed than some of the lowest unfolded human beings are now at this time. So without the solar angel, the egoic lotus would not be built as it is now, yes, in our system. But in the previous system and on the moon chain, the solar angels didn't build it, and yet there it is. And there are egoic lotuses coming in from the moon chain, from other places in our solar system, and they have petals unfolded. They have petals of the egoic lotus already unfolded without solar angelic intervention. So what the solar angels did is they took the design that the monad intended and they built it a lot faster. and created out of themselves a bridge whereby we became cultivated much faster, like HBB says, like hothouse plants, she said, like those big tomatoes, you know, that are grown by the hydroponic method in the hothouse. We wouldn't have grown in that way. So here is a little section about having individualized elsewhere and coming in with several petals unfolded. It's in Treatise on Cosmic Fire, page 852 and so forth. Just take a look at that, and I'm not going to go over it very much. I've said enough. There's a question about the anima mundi. Well, the anima mundi is not just the soul of the animal kingdom, right? It's the group animal soul. The anima mundi is the entire soul of the world. I've gathered these references for you, and but there's not time right now unless there appears time later to go over them all. Usually the word anima mundi is considered to be the sentiency within the matter substance of the lower 18 subplanes, because there's no such thing as any matter without consciousness, or let's just call it sentiency, or the ability to somehow react on its own level as if it were sensitive. But in a larger sense, the anima mundi is the soul of the entire planetary logos. It is not the soul. You see, right? I'm not going to go here and say what this context was. He's not saying that the anima mundi is not the soul of the planetary logos, because that soul is the anima mundi and the soul of all forms and all kingdoms. So, Peg, when you say that it's like the oversoul, I would say so. However, it should be borne in mind that the anima mundi is usually associated with the soul of matter, even though it is the entirety of the soul. You ask the question here, you say, is the human soul asleep? I would say not. I would say it is not extremely conscious between lives until quite a few lives have passed, but more and more it will eventually, after death, go into the causal body that is being formed with the help of the solar angel, and is increasingly awake and can see much more from that higher point of view with its consciousness merged with the solar angel than it can as the soul in incarnation within the personality. Where does the personality fit in all of this? Is it actually the human soul in some way? Well, I would say that the personality is what I would call the four elemental lives. And when the soul in incarnation identifies with these elemental lives, you know, the mental elemental, the astral elemental, the physical elemental, then that type of consciousness is bewildered into thinking that it is those elementals. And then we say of it that it is the personality. But in fact, the truth of the matter is that any being and any consciousness whatsoever is the consciousness of the monad in a greatly reduced manner through different fields of matter. So when I say my soul consciousness on the higher mental plane, it's really monadic consciousness, but it is contained within the vehicle which much reduces its awareness on the higher mental plane. When I say my personality consciousness, it's really the consciousness of the monad, even more attenuated and reduced in the elemental nature. Now, eventually, that monadic consciousness, like the prodigal son, wakes up to itself and says, wait a second, I'm none of these things, and it begins the process of abstraction until eventually there is the return along the line of emanation, and eventually at the 6th degree it realizes itself as the full monad, but all the time it has only been monadic consciousness and monadic being in different states of consciousness and different confinements of being. Any one of these questions, you know, we could go on for an hour here, but I have to be very careful about that. You say only the monad and the personality are left? Well, let's put it like this. The spiritual triad is the extension of the monad and the three vehicles of the monad, and from that spiritual triad a replica of the former personality can be built from the permanent atoms of the spiritual triad, which are different from the lower permanent atoms, and from that center of the jewel in the lotus, which has been abstracted into the triadal realm, nesting itself in Atma Buddhi, you can build a personality. And it's, again, only the awareness of the monad in a lower field of matter. That's what you've got. So you can't even say the personality is left. All you have is an instrument that you have created, which is called a Maya Virupa. Vera asks, what happens after the person takes the fourth initiation? I understand that the causal body will be discarded or dissolved. What happens to the permanent atoms? Well, the permanent atoms are destroyed, says the Tibetan, and all is reabsorbed into the triad. And in my view, the content of the lower permanent atoms, they're not all permanent, the content of the mental unit, the astral permanent atom, and the physical permanent atom are in a way absorbed into the central jewel and redistributed into the spiritual triad. So it seems to me that whatever pertains to the mental unit is lodged as a higher faculty now within the monastic permanent atom. Whatever is found in the astral unit finds its way into the Buddhic permanent atom. And whatever, well, you know, there's different ways of looking at this. It depends on whether we're dealing with a reflection or dealing with a correspondence. Let me turn to a, here we go. Now, not that big. All right, here are all the permanent atoms underneath, the mental unit, the astral permanent atom, and the physical permanent atom, and they have to make their way into these higher repositories of faculty. The triadal permanent atoms are more simple. They only have 3 spirulae, and they are higher repositories of faculty from which, with the power of the central life, which has lodged itself in Atma Buddhi, we are told, can be generated a Maya Virupa, which will have everything we need, of what we need from below. Now, eventually, what does it say here? The essence of the personality, the faculties developed, the knowledge gained, and the remembrance of all that has transpired become part of the equipment of the spirit. It makes it all the way. And eventually, now look at this. This is the word. It's eventually, because it doesn't happen immediately, finds its way into the spirit or monad on its own plane. It takes a while for that to happen. There's a whole process here. The volatile essence, the central fire, the jewel in the lotus, it isn't really destroyed. It is raised up. The central fire becomes centralized in Atma Buddhi, and eventually it escapes back onto the plane of abstraction, okay? And the planes of abstraction are the triadal levels, and eventually it returns to the true jewel, which is the jewel in the crown, which is the monad itself. So there are some wonderful things said here, and I'm just going to, there it is, about the crown. Look, this brings about the opening of the central bud, the revelation of the jewel, the withdrawal of that jewel from the casket, which has so long shielded it, and its transfer to the crown. The crown has to do with the crown worn by the planetary logos, in which, in a way, each monad is a jewel, as it is called, meaning return to the monad from whence it came. So read those, Vera, and there's so much there of beauty and of promise for all of us when the day comes. But let's just say, whatever's going on in the lower personality eventually is transferred to the higher personality. And what is this higher personality? It is the spiritual triad, which is a direct higher correspondence of the lower personality. So nothing is lost, everything is saved, and faculty that we've generated here below, which was once here in the egoic lotus, is all transferred into a higher center of force. All right. Now, there were just a couple of other things that needed to be said, and I'll get into it quickly. What about what happens, this bit about the solar angel, which informs the person's soul? Well, what does it mean, informs? It does inform in a way, and it substands the person's soul, and it gives the person a context in consciousness where he can think, when he's in the causal body, in a way he never could unless the solar angel were present. You know how it is sometimes? Let's just say the master walked into the room and we had a discussion. We'd find ourselves thinking in an altogether higher way than we could by ourselves. But it's the same way with the solar angel. Our egoic consciousness is on the higher mental plane, and we can think in a more exalted way because of the substanding presence of the solar angel. So the solar angel returns. You say the person it's like the person is left hanging in limbo without his bodies, but no, in fact, the individual has risen to the feet of the solar angel and has absorbed so much of that solar angelic essence that in a way he is like a minor solar angel. He's like Horus in the Egyptian mythology. He has wings now. He's flying free. He has solar angelic qualities, and he has everything he needs within the spiritual triad. Now, it may be that his vehicles are destroyed and he dies, but not necessarily. Some of the masters have lived after going through this renunciation. And when they do, they still have their lower vehicles, but the complete control over them is from the level of the spiritual triad. The causal body is destroyed, but not entirely dispersed. That's the key. It takes to the fifth initiation to, like a supernova, you've got to clear all of the debris. And by the time we reach the fifth initiation, we are able to say that we have the revelation, and it is truly clear, and we are a true, clear-seeing initiate, and we can see into the purpose of our God, the planetary logos, as we never had before. One more thing you ask. It's about Apollonius of Tyana. Remember that Apollonius was a disciple of the Master Jesus and was born even before him. So what Master Jesus did, he was not a master, but he came in as an initiate. Apollonius gave him his bodies, his inner principles, and stood aside, as it were, in his own inner principles. And so the only thing that belongs to Apollonius, really, is the physical body, maybe the etheric body, but I think, maybe just the physical body. And the entire principles of the initiate Jesus are inside the body of Apollonius, and in that condition, he takes the fifth initiation. Apollonius was a lesser initiate to the Master Jesus. Master Jesus was a lesser initiate to the Christ, and the Prince Gautama Siddhartha was, I believe, a lesser initiate to the Buddha. So basically, it's Master Jesus taking all of his inner principles into that vehicle, with Apollonius standing aside and learning and watching and letting him do what he has to do. And that's the mechanism of how that occurs. This is my theory, and I believe it's more than a theory. It's the Tulku phenomenon, as it is called. Okay, and all right, so I have one more question here of those that have been given to me, and I'm going to, I have one more here. Teddy has asked some questions here, and what types of people were the civilization then? Well, the Atlanteans were not very mentally focused. The fact that they did such great things simply meant that they were impressed by the higher minds of the hierarchy who directed them to do things. The Lemurians were even less so, and they were huge in their stature. We say Atlanteans had a physical vehicle maybe of some 27 feet or 30 feet, and the Lemurians were even greater in their stature. Huge tabernacles of clay, and they were learning things just the way a child learns. First you learn your etheric and physical coordination, then you learn your responsiveness, emotional, and then finally you get to the point of mentality. So their civilizations were nowhere near as advanced as ours mentally per se, but they could do wonders because the magic was not yet withdrawn from them, because they had not messed up so much that it had to be withdrawn from them. Once the Black Lodge got into the whole deal, then they said, okay, why don't you try this? And people were lured off the proper path and became very, very selfish, at least some of them did, and began to use their powers in negative personal ways. After that, the powers had to be withdrawn over time. And so, there were those in Atlantis which were far more intelligent than we are now, but the majority of the people were still in the emotional condition. I'm just trying to see here, Teddy, what we've got here. Has it made those who were descendants of the solar angels who actually embodied well, yes, there were, and he says they have a peculiar heredity. back in the Lemurian days, some of these advanced beings called solar angels actually embodied themselves in these huge tabernacles of clay, these, crude outer forms, and yet they were molding the racial type all the time in doing this. And there are, I suppose, descendants of those earlier great, the earlier examples in which the solar angels took the forms, and they had a certain heredity, and maybe by the masters can even be identified today. It says their heredity is peculiar, and what I think is that these people who got a fast start in a way are earth chain humanity who is advanced enough to be moving into discipleship in the hierarchy. Most of earth chain humanity is not. Most of our disciples are coming from the moon chain of the previous solar system, but I have a feeling that some of those who have that peculiar heredity, and I'm no expert on this, DK just drops a little hint on it, that they are the ones who have somehow moved closer to absorption into the hierarchy. Even a few of the earth chain human beings like the Christ are actually members of the hierarchy, having gone faster even than the Christ. Let's see a little bit more. I'm leaning over here to see what these are. Were there as inferior beings for whom mental unit was stale, but the spark of spirit not implemented? Well, I tried to explain a little bit about the spark of, a little bit about the mental unit, how the animals were developing this, the advanced animals of the period. Not everybody could be individualized at that time. Only the advanced animal men of that early period were considered ripe for the implantation of the spark of the mind. Now, the rest of the animal men of the period, their mental unit was fanned, as it were. It was raised into a state of greater vibration, and they were stimulated in that way toward becoming human, but the solar angel was not within them, as it were. He had not pervaded their universe with a fragment of himself. And DK tells us that there are some of the early groups on our planet right now, maybe in Australia, in some places of Japan, in some places of Africa, maybe there are other places as well, that there are people who had the spark fanned, their mental unit was fanned, but the solar angel is not yet within them, as it were, and they're just evolving in their own way, the way the earlier groups did on the moon chain and also in the previous solar system. But in the next round, which is the 5th round, they will have their opportunity. They have very little karma, and they're going to go very fast. So that's how I would answer those questions, Teddy. I realize, in a way, I have to be quick. Maybe it seems a little superficial. If I went into depth on any one of these questions, I would be here all night, okay? Okay, hi, look, nice to hear from you. From Slovenia, just so people know where you're coming from. Okay.
Yes, culturally.
Okay.
Well, I was very interested about the pain you were talking about. And since that our sphere is known as a sphere of pain, I was wondering, before that, you were explaining that the Mahat, that the universal mind, that the monastic principle is not yet so firmly developed within our chain.
Our solar system, and maybe on our, not so much yet, because we have not yet taken the second cosmic initiation on our Earth, yet alone the third. So it's on its way, but not so fully, no.
Exactly. So I was wondering, the pain, when does it ceases to be the motivating power of evolution?
Pain. Oh, pain. Yes. 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 Does it ever cease? I would. Yes. I would say it does. I would say it does. But
not pain itself. Pain. Where there is body, I think physical body, there is pain. You cannot avoid it.
Maybe not, but technology might help us avoid some of the more obvious types of pain. Then there'll be psychological pain to deal with. But look, let's say we have a second ray soul on our planet. We have the Christ and the hierarchy who are on the second ray. Humanity itself will become a second ray, fourth ray being. a second-ray soul, and a fourth-ray personality. They will understand the harmonizing principle of buddhi, and they will have love wisdom. And DK has told us there's a great love which can neutralize pain. Maybe this is what Paul was talking about as compassion, neutralizing pain. Pain first, and then comes the great love which harmonizes all things according to pure reason. So when does that come? When does that happen? And it's on its way. It's on its way. After the judgment day, we just wait a few million years, it's all, we're going to be in good shape.
Well, I don't think it's necessary for that long, you know. I think that when we develop wisdom in little drops, it's not that we need to be enlightened. It's not something that you stepped into the whole, you know.
Yeah.
But the wisdom itself is in a way becoming then, when you evolve, when you tread upon the path, I think more and more the motivating power and the thing that makes you view pain differently, makes you perceive that you do things from the understanding.
Yes.
And that then what drives you forward in spite of pain, not because of the pain, you know?
Yes, it does, and also there will be the neutralization. There's a statement here about ecstasy. I hope I can, and I wonder if there's anything here about pain with it. He says, well, maybe this is it. I don't know, and maybe not. Hence, ecstasy and exaltation. Here it is, Esoteric Psychology 2. He talks about the transcendence of pain. And let's see, here it is. A touch of this freedom from the limitation of pain and sorrow can be found among the more advanced sons of men on earth, who know the ecstasy of the mystic, the exaltation of the initiate, and now this is a really good one, and the exquisite agony of sacrifice or of any feeling when it is carried forward to the point of sublimation. I mean, that is the great statement, and one really worth pondering, because DK has said that what the masters feel is an intense state of spiritual agony because they are so identified with humanity, who sometimes doesn't do so well. But anyway, just going on here, Luca, for a second. When this point has been reached, the mechanism of suffering and the ability to register sensuous perception is transcended, and momentarily the man escapes onto the plane of unity, buddhi. Here there is no pain, no sorrow, no rebellion, and no suffering. When the living, vibrating antaskarana or bridge is built, this way of escape becomes the normal path of life. Escape from pain is then automatic, for the center of consciousness is elsewhere. In the cases mentioned above, where the antaskarana is not consummated, established fact, the tiny thread of the partially constructed way of escape, under tremendous pressure and excitation, shoots forward like a quivering band of light and momentarily touches the light that is the self. Hence, ecstasy and exaltation. But it does not last and cannot be consciously recovered until the third initiation has been taken. After that, the way of escape becomes the way of daily livingness, etc., etc. Then pain is transcended, steadily transcended, and the pairs of opposites, pleasure and pain, no longer have any hold of the disciples. So, for many, as you say, wisdom, even though there is pain, will make it possible for them to live and move forward regardless of the pain. But also DK does actually here speak in Esoteric Psychology 2 of the transcendence of pain, but that still doesn't leave most of humanity having transcended pain. Most of humanity is still not there, and when they are, then this transcendence will occur. It's a great statement there on page 102, 103.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're all really interested in this subject of pain because we're experiencing it every day, in one way or another. Maybe not in our bodies, but in our emotions. And maybe not in our emotions, but in our mind. There's always dissonance. But you know what it says of the fourth-rate technique of healing? The healer knows the place where dissonance is found. He also knows the power of sound and the sound which must be heard. And anyway, he manages to sound the word which harmonizes things. And eventually, humanity is going to be a fourth ray personality, a harmonious personality under a secondary soul. Maybe not yet. But we're on our way. You know, we're on our way, and these higher states. And look, even if we manage...
The question of...
Yeah, go ahead, Luca. Yeah, go ahead.
What you said and read right now, it is the question of conscious perception of pain. So the pain basically never goes away. It is not just the consciousness which changes and its relationship towards pain.
I would say this, that the dissonance the world dissonance will not just go away, but where is the consciousness relative to that world dissonance? So, yes...
when you create it, there is no pain because the friction between spiritual energies and forces of the body is not existing.
Exactly. Pain, friction, and dissonance, these three things go together, and they can be resolved even on our earth, which will become a great center of harmony eventually.
Yes.
But we have a few thousand years to go. Well, look, okay, well, thank you for asking that question and pointing those things out. And look, go to that section in Rays and Initiations where he talks about Sanat Kumara and the purpose which necessitated the calling into existence of the principle of pain. Because there is a profound explanation of pain. Profound. And it's too profound for me to deal with it right now, but the mysterious purpose which has necessitated calling into activity of the principle of pain. So thank you, Luca, for your thoughts, and appreciate your presence here at this open webinar. Thank you. Okay, Stephen, yes, there you are. Hi, Stephen. Welcome.
And thank you very much, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you're here, Stephen. Great to have you.
You made an interesting point that really struck me as quite insightful in answering question 3 about the disintegration of the permanent atom. And you used the comparison of a supernova. And that seems so spiritually metaphoric in relation of the sun being a Leo quality of individuation, and then the supernova equating to a Uranian, almost Aquarian, where the permanent atom is dissolved into quarks, so to speak, and then the quarks of personality are redistributed in that Aquarian faction, which seems so similar to the idea of the Aquarian waters being plasmic energy, which are emanated from the supernova itself.
I like it. I like it a lot. You have, obviously, you've done a lot of reading in science. You must have some fifth ray going for you. I meant to say also, in case I did not say, that it's the entire causal body which goes supernova, and not only the permanent atoms, because all the substance of the petals as well are destroyed and reabsorbed into the central life. As a matter of fact, I have a quote to show that that the permanent atoms are destroyed and absorbed into the central life, but the central life itself does not go all the way back to the monad. It rests in the realms of abstraction, in the realm of Atma Buddhi, and somehow from its presence in that realm, the permanent atoms of the triad, which are more powerful and simpler, somehow receive the capacity to everything that the lower permanent atoms have had, they now have absorbed. So I like your analogies very much. I think, of course, I don't know so much about quarks and things of that nature, but it seems correct to me. It seems good. What else, Stephen? Is that it? Because it's good.
Well, it seems like, as using the spiritual metaphor to extend the analogy of people who have a difficult time transitioning from standard astrology to esoteric astrology,
right,
and to see that the phenomena within nature itself intrinsically reflects the holograms of which they speak, so that the idea of spirit transcends soul, and the idea of most people looking at soul is really the limitation of the permanent atom and not seeing what the total dissolution and redistribution of those refined sense of self actually means.
Yeah, I like the idea of dissolution and redistribution, and I will say this, the limitations of the petals of the egoic lotus as well. Because, you know, when DK tells us about, he doesn't draw a picture exactly, but he tells us this. He says that the permanent atoms are located in the lower part of the egoic lotus. So they represent the third aspect of divinity. And they are not actually the petals themselves, which are filled with radiant quality, color, sound, and all the virtues. The permanent atoms are filled with memories. They are the, you know, sort of the infinitesimal, well, that's not the right word, but they're the tiniest memory chips that have recorded all experience. And they are, so there's several parts to the egoic lotus which get destroyed. So whatever the content of the permanent atom may be, it is absorbed into the central fire, and then, as you say, I think very wisely and pictorially, redistributed in the spiritual triad. But all of this is burned up as well. All of these qualities are entering now the central fire, and they exist on the high levels of the spiritual triad and can be used to generate what they call a will-created body. So it's the permanent atoms, it is the 9 ordinary petals of the egoic lotus, it is the 3 synthesizing petals, all of which are destroyed and sent into the central fire. But the central fire, known as the jewel in the lotus, is not really destroyed, because actually it is the projection of the monad. So, and just a word about astrology. We can evolve an astrology which deals with all these things. We can, there will come the astrology of the soul. I'm working on a little book that will be given in this form, and maybe I told you about it when we talked, that it's going to be about the astrological and planetary components of every one of the petals of the egoic lotus and the stages that they represent in the development of man. So it's the astrological history of man as seen in the egoic lotus. So those petals are also destroyed with all of their virtue vaporized in the great supernova, and they have to relocate, or as you said, be redistributed up in this area. You're very articulate, Stephen. I think we're going to have to talk. It's very good, very good. I appreciate your analogy. Thank you so much. I do, and I think, folks, you're all going to find that interesting, because every one of us has an egoic lotus which is in process of unfoldment. And every one of us is in a different stage of unfoldment. We might say stimulation, organization, unfoldment, and finally opening. Those 4 stages, we can say of any particular petal, there's a lot of overlap. And according to the petal that we may be opening, so our stage of evolution and our particular task is defined. And according to the horoscope that we've got, different petals will be stimulated, organized, unfolded, or opened in our interior life. So our horoscope directly connects with how this flower is unfolding, if you see what I mean. Okay, Stephen, thank you. We'll be in touch. We'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your thought. Okay, I see your hand, Rose. Hold on. Right, go ahead, Rose. Can you hear me? Make sure you're on. There you go. I hear you well. Yep. Go ahead.
Good. Well, I have a comment and a question.
All right.
The first comment, I guess, would be about the previous discussion about pain.
Yes. Yes.
It kind of struck a resemblance note with me as a few years ago, well, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or so, I had an interesting experience brought upon by a deep suffering, by extreme pain. And it reached to such a point, it had built and built and built, that it just sort of like, almost like in the quote that you read, was, and I ended up going to a place where there was no pain of any kind, no physical, mental, emotional. And the outstanding characteristic of this place, besides that, was consciousness was clearer. There was more consciousness, an enhancement of consciousness. And the state of consciousness I'm experiencing right now is like being asleep, but in that state of waking up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
Interesting.
very blissful, or whatever the word's, exalted.
Yeah.
And it lasted for like 3 days, you know,
Wow.
and I came back into
Wow.
this state. I was still experiencing it, but then it faded, and then it was no more to be found. It was like, but I still have the memory of it.
Exactly.
Wow.
But you know, we can always count on our planet to deliver the necessary pain. You know, we may settle down to the dead level because pain can be exquisite, but we will have enough sensitizing experiences delivered by the crosses on which we are crucified. Now, most of us here are going to be crucified on the fixed cross, which reveals the soul, and we will get the resensitizing of our consciousness. And I'll tell you what, anything that you gained by that other experience, which may have been in a way covered over now by the daily routine and all the rest of it, will be reawakened as a fire within your system upon which you can rely. So remember that nothing is ever lost. It only appears to be covered for a time and can be reclaimed. Meanwhile, the sensitizing process goes on. So what was your question, Rose?
Well, before I get to the question, one last comment on that would be, I can also see the necessity for pain, because if we were in that state, if that was our continual state of consciousness, we wouldn't do anything. We would just be blissed out, like not even just, you know, like blissed zombies, basically. We wouldn't have any motivation. I mean, it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's such a state where you just, you know, it's this. Well, anyways, I think you get what I'm
I understand that, because it tells us here that pain is the whip. I mean, it's so true that in our inner nature we are God, we are consciousness, we are being, and what's to be done? Nothing's to be done in a way, because we're actually in a state of perfection. But when we're down here in the fragmented world, pain wakes us up to the fact that we're asleep, okay? So that's where it helps. And that ties in a little bit, you know, with Peg's question about whether the soul is asleep. Well, relatively in the early days, but more and more awake, more and more pained, more and more driven by divine discontent to find the real solution. So I agree that we apparently need that on our planet here. Okay, so now your question.
My question is, my dad has often said that dinosaurs were supposed to be man, that they were intended by Sanat Kumara to be humans. And I have not found any verification of this, and I was wondering if you knew of anything around on that line.
Well, I don't, but there is something peculiar about the second round, and it's sometimes called the reptilian round. And Tuya studies this quite a bit. That you know, in the ancient iconography that's found in many traditions, we see these sort of serpent gods as representing high deities, fiery beings, and they're somewhat in the form of the serpent or the reptile. It seems that there is somehow, and I don't know how to define it, a connection between the solar angels, the reptile form, the snakes of fire, spirits of fire. I don't think that dinosaurs per se, I have no knowledge of exactly how that would be, because it seems to me that in the divine plan and divine purpose there are other stages which were intended, and the dinosaurs appeared to me a little too early to be part of what we call the individualization of animal man. But I do want to just say that one thing, that the reptilian second round, they may have been appearing at that time, or following that in the third round. In other words, which rounds the dinosaurs appeared in are still have to be sorted out. So their connection with the solar angels, or the reptile connection with the solar angels, is something that has to be examined, a very fruitful subject. And when you look at the solar angels, the lower part of them is called the crocodiles. See what I mean? And the crocodiles are in a way a kind of a descendant of the dinosaurs and those earlier fierce first ray beasts. So I couldn't go any further with it than that, but I would say if we study the second round carefully, well, I tell you what, I don't want to branch off into too much of a tangent, but there is going to be something here about the reptile second round. I guess I'll find it here. The secret of the reptile kingdom is one of the mysteries of the second round, and there is a profound significance connected with the expression, the serpents of wisdom, which is applied to all adepts of the good law. The reptile kingdom has an interesting place in all mythologies and all ancient forms of truth impartation, and for no arbitrary reason, it is not possible to enlarge upon this underlying truth which is hidden in the karmic history of our planetary logos and is revealed as part of the teaching given to initiates of the second degree, second round. Of course, they forget, they're shown on the inner planes, but they forget. And so just look at this stuff here on the Treatise on Cosmic Fire around page 892, 893, and following the heavenly serpent in the second round. See all of this here as well on page 894 and 893, and maybe talk it over with your dad and see if he had something like this in mind. It's probably the best I can do is to recommend that kind of reading and ponder on this, These earlier beings may have taken the form of serpents as they appeared to humanity, but I would say serpents of fire. Okay, I hope that at least is indicative of something.
Not much, but okay.
Well, okay. Well, then let me just say, as far as I know, the connection with dinosaurs, particularly, and having to become man, I cannot see the link, but I can see the link to the reptiles and the solar angels. I guess that's as far as I can take it for the moment.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Rose. Okay. Now, Carol, you have I see your hand up, Carol Warburton. Hello.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Carol.
It's about healing, and it says in esoteric healing, of course, that Christ is the consummate healer because he was so perfected. As humanity, how can we hope to be healers? Is it just a glamour to think that we may be able to heal also?
No. He says, as a matter of fact, he says, sometimes you think that it's a special talent, but no. He says if you have the right motive, if you're in touch with your soul, the art of healing can definitely be learned. He really goes out of his way to say that in the Esoteric Healing book. We're not the Christ yet, but on the other hand, the full method of healing is not going to be developed except over centuries. So, he's already given us what we can use, but it's something that all of us can do if we have imagination, if we have love, if we have goodwill, if we work in a group. We can begin even now. And in terms of the manipulations that are involved with magnetic healing and the formation of the various triangles, well, we have to be careful because it either cures disease or increases the evil state according to the knowledge of the healer. But when it comes to radiatory healing, where the healer must link his soul, his brain, his heart, and his auric emanation, thus can his presence feed the soul life of the patient. This is the work of radiation. The hands are needed not. The soul displays its power. The patient's soul responds through the radiation of his aura in touch with the healer's aura. The last sentence is not exact, but through the response of his aura to the radiation of the healer's aura flooded with soul light. So that's our job. We flood our instrument with soul light. We create a magnetic triangle in the head through purification. We attain that dispelling radiance, which comes from linking the centers in the head. We bring in the soul energy into our etheric body. We follow the suggestions of Master Decay. And why should it be? We won't be very good at first, but if we have enough love, it is not the will that must be used, but love. If we have enough love, some good is going to come of this. But Kay, do you think we can begin to do something good right now at this point? Something of value? What do you think?
Yes, certainly. Yeah, certainly.
Because
we have to make a start somewhere.
Exactly. What do we need? What do we need to become esoteric healers? I mean, just in a nutshell. What do you think?
Well, the heart that is opening certainly helps you with the right motivation.
Yeah, I know you know all about those triangles and all those things that Alan Hopkins has in his book, but I think you're right about the heart, isn't it? It is not will that must be used, but love.
Yes.
And, you know,
Yes,
so
yes.
we can't force the issue, can we? We actually have to, in a way, ask permission, don't we, as well? We can't, you know, sort of force healing on anybody. But if we have the right motive, I wonder if anyone can find that, Carol, that it is so here. But why, Carol, do you have some doubt that it's possible?
I was just wondering if our ability to heal is can be deflected by the glamours that we may have in our personality, you see. So
Sure.
different beings will be, of course, better healers because they are more purified. Their
Well,
vehicles
that's
are more
the key.
purified.
That's the key. The healer must achieve magnetic purity through purity of life. He must attain that dispelling radiance which shows itself in every man when he has linked the centers in the head. When this magnetic field is established, the radiation can then go forth. So, of course, we have to purify. Our motive has to be very pure, and our etheric physical also, you know, has to be a good medium of transmission. There's all kinds of details about it, but let's just say, yes, our usual stuff can get in the way. So one of the important things about it is to clear up the kind of liabilities that we have as disciples who are prone to glamour and illusion. The more we clear that up, the better our healing. And somewhere he said, maybe you remember, that every member of the hierarchy is, by that very fact, an esoteric psychologist and an esoteric healer, just by being a member of the hierarchy. But look what you've had to go through to get there. So,
Okay, thank you.
it's coming. Thank you, Carol. Thank you
Potential.
for that. Thank you for that question.
Are DK's books written in a particular order, aside from the treatise on the rays? And what are some good books to start with reading?
Okay.
Is there a real order to the books, or is it primarily the individual? These questions are often asked by those beginning the work. I was just drawn from one to another. Okay.
Well, look, Iris. Well, first of all, our friend Keith will know better than I the exact order and years of the writing of the books. But Initiation of Human and Solar came first, and that for a very good reason, and everybody should start there. And Letters on Occult Meditation were assembled pretty much at the same time. I would say, yes, the Tibetan wrote these things in order and for a purpose. And he gives everybody the foundation they need. He gives all the old theosophists a great overview, because he went from the beginning to the end pretty much. He gave Initiation Human and Solar and Letters on Occult Meditation at first, and they give the real wonderful foundation. They're not too long, and they're profound. You know, I always find Letters on Occult Meditation one of those, you know, how does anybody ever understand this books? But Initiation Human and Solar is the very basis. Then he jumps to a treatise on cosmic fire. And there, you know, theosophists who have been raised on the secret doctrine, he wanted to give that to them in time so they would see the link from the secret doctrine, because it's the psychological key to the secret doctrine. So he would magnetize the theosophists who just say, oh, it's just Alice Bailey saying something, because the book is so profound that any true student will immediately recognize the continuity between the secret doctrine and Treatise on Cosmic Fire. Okay, having anchored this attractive book, which is to be studied by initiates and which will magnetize all the theosophists, he goes right into the control of the astral body. He writes a treatise on white magic, and every disciple who is up and coming is going to need that book, which is essentially a book on the control of the astral body. It has so much in it of a practical nature, plus 15 rules which are only, which we cannot really fully understand yet. But he says, study them now. I'll give you the esoteric keys later, and it'll move faster for you. Then he goes right into the treatise on the 7 rays, which was written in sequence. Now, meanwhile, he's working with his groups of 9, and so from their instructions arises telepathy in the etheric vehicle, because he worked with them from 1931 to 1939, 40. Out comes glamour, a world problem from the instructions to the group that was the observers. What are they called? What kind of observers? Observers of reality. Then the esoteric healing. Many of those are instructions. They're also part of the series of the 7 rays, but he gave instructions to his group, and he did not have an astrological group, interestingly enough. I guess they were not especially attracted to the arcane school as it was at that time. And then education in the New Age. He organized 4 groups quite completely, and from education in the New Age, this is a collection of what he had written for that group, plus other things. Then he started to organize the political group, and he has the destiny of the nations for that, but he didn't get very far with it. It took a long time to keep on writing the bigger books. Esoteric Astrology, I've been calculating this out, was written in the late 30s pretty much, and went to part of it before 1942, but part of it, certain essays included in Esoteric Astrology, even up to the end of the war in 1945. So it was written in segments, and it was not published until later. The same goes for Esoteric Healing. I think it wasn't published until the 1960s. As for the rays and the initiations, what I've discussed with Keith on this and what he tells me is that these are instructions for his ashram group, which he had 14 people. They had to be all located in the same place. Now maybe they wouldn't have to with the internet, but they had to have their monthly meetings, which Alice Bailey, as a member of the ashram, supervised, and their lessons were gathered together as the rays and the initiations. So there does seem to be an order. The order makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily go from the simplest to the most complex. In a way, A Treatise on Cosmic Fire is the most complex, and he established that early to get the attention, I think, of those people who were profound readers of the secret doctrine, and even now would sort of say, poo-poo what Alice Bailey wrote. Well, when you read Cosmic Fire, your jaw drops, and you have to say, okay, this is the sequel to the secret doctrine. What I would recommend, start with Initiation Human Solar, absolutely. And if a person has a special interest, along with Initiation Human and Solar, give them their particular interest. If it's politics, Destiny of the Nations. If it's psychology, we have the psychology books. If it's astrology, we have the astrology books. But always start with Initiation Human and Solar. And in the beginning of Letters on Occult Meditation, there are some essays there that I definitely would start with. Later he starts talking about the Master and the Sacred Word and color and sound. Well, if you're an artist, look at all the color and sound stuff that is found in Letters on Occult Meditation. Iris, does that somewhat answer your question, what you were hoping to get out of it? You can say hi if you wish, if you're there. Okay. If not, anyway, I've done what
She may not have audio.
Oh, she may not. Okay. Anyway, that's what I can say about that.
Mary Bell's question is, thanks to Walter, he found it. What is the cycle of the soul out of incarnation? In other words, who or what brings the soul into incarnation? And Iris says, yes, thank you.
Okay, great, Iris. Thank you. Okay, well, who or what brings, it's the solar angel and one's own consciousness and the laws of the group to which the soul belongs that bring it into incarnation, because basically we're told that incarnation is a group phenomenon, and there are these ray cycles. And, in some intricate way that we cannot fathom, let's say, second ray has a 500-year cycle, third ray a 900-year cycle, a 70 or 700-year cycle for the seventh ray, 100 or a 1,000-year cycle, 100 whatever for the first ray. These ray cycles have to be observed. So it's all controlled in that way by the super intelligence of the solar angel. But desire also can bring a soul right back into incarnation, not in a group sense, but the fulfilling of desire. Later, it becomes more and more intelligence. In the beginning, they may be attracted into incarnation even before their time, because the elemental nature is so strong that they simply respond to the desire to reincarnate. They're on the clockwise wheel. They do not seek for anything but experience in the world. They have certain things they have not accomplished. They want to accomplish those things. Desire can bring you in, but later it is the will, it is the cycles of the group, it is the timing for the group to which you belong when you start to respond to your soul ray, then particularly you come in with your soul group of brothers and sisters. And it is also the great guidance of the solar angel, which DK tells us can see several lives previously, several lives ahead, and is orchestrating this whole thing in consultation with our consciousness within the egoic lotus to determine the time of incarnation. But it's not all done just on an individual basis. Maybe that sometimes happens, but the group process of incarnation really has to be considered, especially in the later days of the incarnational process. You know, a lot of people say, well, how long do you spend between lives? And DK says, don't listen to that. He says, you don't know. You can come back in a few years, or you can come back in a few centuries, or 1,000 years. There are these soul cycles. There's these root race cycles which determine incarnation. What I'm trying to say, Mary Bell, is there's a lot of factors that are all going into the mix to create that vector that we call incarnation. So I don't think it's any one thing. For people like ourselves, the desire to serve and not the selfish desire to have will bring us into incarnation with rapidity, because at a certain point we gain the privilege of foregoing the wonderful illusion of Devachan. Devachan, you know, the higher heaven on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. And Devachan is not useless, but it is an illusory state. We do work up our faculty and our abilities in Devachan, and so when we reincarnate, we are farther ahead than we were when we left. Many things are fulfilled and brought together, but the true disciple will, when he's capable of it, or she is capable of it, return quickly for the purposes of service. And DK says there's no telling. You cannot tell exactly when it will be in any broad and general sense. Okay, Mary Bell, I hope that's a little bit in that direction, showing us the complexity of the situation. You know, people are always interested, well, I'm going to spend 100 years out of incarnation, then I come back for 70, then I go and maybe I'll spend 500 years, whatever. You know, he says that it is foolish to try to systematize the number of years out of incarnation. It can be very, very long or very short, and it will, but as you advance, it will be shorter and shorter. As a matter of fact, a condition will arise, and I wonder if it corresponds with the second initiation and with the unfolding of the sixth petal of the egoic lotus. A condition will arise in which you don't have to drop your astral body or your mental body. You can come right back in with the astral and mental body that you've got. You will drop your etheric body. You will, you know, but from the astral plane, with full mentality, you will again descend into incarnation without having to dissolve them and rebuild them in the long process of appropriation, which can take some years. You know, the Dalai Lama, whatever the truth of all that is, he goes out of incarnation. A few years later, he's back in. Or he's born again. You know, how does that happen? Because he's at that stage where he does not have to undergo the disintegration of his subtle bodies, namely his psychic bodies, his mind and emotions. So we look forward to that time when we can do that. It will save time, and we can get right back in here and serve as we should and must. Okay.
Does a person have to have taken the first initiation before they enter the field of politics?
Was that his question? No, of course not. I mean, there's all kinds of people, you know, there's all kinds of people in the political field, and maybe even some of them doing some good who have not taken the first initiation. But let's just say it sure would help if we had more initiates in the field of politics at this time. So let's just say that if you have an ongoing interest in Master DK's work, and if you study it and meditate accordingly, and if you spend some years of your life doing this as if it is really an important thing, you want to refine your life, you want to discipline yourselves for greater beauty of life, you want to study the esoteric things, you want to meditate, it's a pretty good indication that you either have taken the first initiation or are in process of taking it. So that changes the game. It's the birth of the Christ in the heart, and even though we struggle and make mistakes and all kinds of things go wrong, something is anchored in us which is actually including us in the great circle of hierarchy. Let me show you this wonderful picture where it shows you what hierarchy looks like in a way, and there it is. See this nice blue circle? Keith did this, you know, he put the colors in, which is very helpful for us. Look here, this is the planetary hierarchy, and look who's there, you know. I'm sure you find yourself there in a certain way. Watch this. Here's the, within that circle, average humanity, no. But people on the probationary path, various grades of disciples, and initiates of 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all considered within the circle of hierarchy. So let's just say that even if we're on the path of probation and have not yet quite taken the first initiation, we can still do quite a bit of good. Generally, the first degree, I'll just make a generality. The first degree of initiation is correlated with stepping upon the fixed cross, with entering into the kingdom of God, and of being a true disciple, even though in a way you're on probation until you become an accepted disciple. So let's just say it's nice to have the first degree, and if we truly love our fellow human beings, and if we're trying to discipline our lives for greater beauty, and if we want to study the spiritual material, it doesn't have to be decay, but whoever, to really bring the soul out, if we believe in some higher power, and if we're somehow trying to contact that higher power and be in touch with that higher power, that is a pretty good indication that the first degree is either imminent or has been taken or has been taken. Right. So there is hope, right? There is encouragement. Question from Paul. He said, at the bottom of Esoteric Astrology 416, the Great Bear Triangle includes Pluto as a substitute for a sacred planet. Well, actually, I wonder if he says it's a substitute or he just includes it. What might be the rationale for considering Pluto as a sacred planet, and why not Vulcan? Well, here's how I understand it. Within our solar system, Vulcan and Pluto are expressions or custodians of this first-ray energy, and as I have told you, esoteric planets. He never says of Pluto, which is lower in status actually than Mars, that it is actually a sacred planet. It's not. But it is very esoteric in its effect, and it really only operates in a conscious way in the lives of disciples. If you look at these planetary gods, they are tremendously more conscious and powerful than a human being. Somewhere there's a statement, it's in the 200s of the Cosmic Fire book, and it basically says that a planetary logos was in the position that a master of wisdom is now. But in order to be a sacred planet, you have to take the fifth initiation. So Pluto hasn't taken it, Mars hasn't taken it, Earth hasn't taken it, and the two hidden planets veiled by the sun and moon, they have not taken it, but they're so incredibly powerful and effective. As a matter of fact, we're told also that Pluto is making an esoteric approach to our Earth right now. And maybe that means something about his monad, because where the word esoteric is used, it often means monad. So you can see really well why the Pleiades, Cancer, and Venus should be together. Pleiades connects with the third ray, the great third ray. Cancer is a third ray sign for the mass consciousness, and Venus oftentimes represents the higher mind. Right now, Venus rules the mental super principle in our solar system, with Jupiter in the middle and Saturn at the top. When you look at the great, when you look at, well, this one, I'm saving the best for last, Sirius, Leo, Jupiter, you really see the love-wisdom line, because Sirius is the cosmic Christ in a certain sense. Leo is the fire sign that has most to do with consciousness, and Jupiter is the great heart center and second-ray planet. Now, here we are. He didn't say you had to have a sacred planet here. The Great Bear is the cosmic Manu. Those are the words of Stephen Pugh, a very fine astrologer, and I think they're correct. It's a great first-ray center representing the head centers in the great supercosmic logos called the one about whom not may be said. Aries, preeminently a first-ray constellation, and Pluto, which has to do with beginnings and endings, fits very well with this sign of beginnings. As a matter of fact, in the same breath, Pluto and Aries are often mentioned together. So their relationship here may have something to do with it. I'm not saying there's not a triangle that we could call Great Bear, Aries, and Vulcan. There could well be such a triangle because Vulcan is very connected with the Great Bear. Vulcan represents head centers for us, and the Great Bear also represents head centers of the Great Being, and Aries is the head, so we could certainly get Vulcan in there, but Pluto has to do with how we deliver all of this right down into matter so that the highest conceptions from the Great Bear get delivered all the way down to the base of the spine. And it is an esoteric planet working upon initiates and disciples, even though we call it non-sacred. It's really very sacred compared to what we are. So I don't think it ever said here that we had to have Pluto as a sacred planet, but only as an esoteric planet. Okay. Well, Paul, I think that's what I can say about that for the moment. We can talk about it more at another time.
Michael, we had one more write-in. Maria Christina
Yes.
asked you to comment further on the solar angels, crocodiles, Makara, and the 5 Kumaras.
Do you know
She
that
says
the
that
word...
she knows
Yeah, go ahead.
that Capricorn enters in as well,
It does.
and that this could be the whole topic for next time.
It could be just the whole book or one's whole life. He says we're not going to solve it. I have to tell you, it's such an interesting thing that here in Finland, the word makara means sausage. So every time I start talking about the makara, I have to be careful that the Finnish people don't think I'm talking about sausage. But anyway, Capricorn is this sign in which Venus is exalted. And there is the higher mind brought to a great summit of the first solar initiation, the sun rising on the mountaintop. But Venus can be turned upside down, and Venus can be the inverted pentagram, and the crocodile, far from being a sacred symbol, can also be the symbol of the devouring personality, who devours the heart of the one who is balanced in the scales in the Osirian mysteries. You know, led in by Pluto, Pluto is leading you, Anubis. Tuya, my wife, is really good at all these things. She knows about all these things. But Pluto is leading you in to the chamber of judgment, where your heart is on the scales. And then the baboon drops the feather in the other pan. And if your heart is not as light as a feather and weighs things down, the crocodile eats your heart, which means you go right back into incarnation. And that's why over on this page, the crocodile is called the personality, right here. This is our table of creative hierarchies, all right? So here we go. Here's the crocodile, the human personality. It devours the heart. But there are higher forms of reptiles, fire serpents, solar angels as fire serpents. And we're always told that the fifth creative hierarchy is a dual hierarchy, meaning the upward pointing star and the downward pointing 5-pointed star. And the downward pointing 5-pointed star uses intelligence to serve desire. And the upward pointing star is using in the higher intelligence to serve love and intuition. And right there is the contrast between the higher and lower parts of the fifth creative hierarchy. At least this is how I understand it. However, you are completely correct, Maria Christina, that this could be not only a subject for one complete discussion, but it could go on, and DK says we're never going to solve it. HPB has nice things to say about the crocodile, that it swims along the Nile and is the first creature to greet the rising sun. Well, let's hope that we crocodilian personalities will learn how to greet the rising sun, which is the solar angel, so we can become fire serpents, serpents of wisdom, and fiery dragons of wisdom, instead of the lower crocodilian nature. You know, even part of our brain is sometimes called the crocodilian brain. So that's what I can say for the moment, or at least what I'm willing to say at the moment about that question. But what I'm going to do here is go to, we're all just going to say this in our own silent way together. May the power of the one life pour through. All right. And may the power of the one life pour through the group of all true servers. May the love of the one soul characterize the lives of all who seek to aid the great ones. May we fulfill our part in the one work through self-forgetfulness, harmlessness, and right speech.